They never told you how much losing you changed them. Not because it didn't matter, but because admitting it would have meant facing something they weren't ready to feel. You walked away quietly, believing you were just another chapter they closed. But what they never said is that your absence followed them into places they never expected, into their routines, their silence, their nights. This isn't a story about regret or reconciliation. It's about the kind of emotional impact that doesn't show up immediately, the kind that waits. When you were there, they were distracted by comfort, by familiarity, by the illusion that you would always be around. But when you were gone, something shifted. They didn't cry in front of anyone. They didn't reach out. They told themselves they were fine, and maybe they even believed it for a while, until the quiet moments arrived, moments where there was no one to soften their thoughts, no one to understand them without explanation, no one who felt like home in a world that suddenly felt colder. This message isn't about making you feel guilty. It's about understanding why some people only realize what you meant after they lose access to you, and why that realization often stays unspoken. Stay with me, because once you understand why losing you affected them so deeply, you'll finally stop questioning whether you ever mattered. 1. What they couldn't say out loud. There are people who don't express pain when it happens. They store it, they delay it. They survive first and feel later. When you left, they didn't chase you. They didn't break down. They told themselves they were fine and made sure the world believed it. But emotional loss doesn't always arrive as tears. Sometimes it arrives as emptiness, as distraction, as pretending life is normal when something essential is missing. You were not just a person in their life. You were a place where they felt understood without explaining themselves. A space where they didn't have to perform or protect their emotions. And when that space disappeared, they didn't know how to name what they felt. Only that something felt off. They missed you in ways they couldn't articulate, not dramatically, not romantically, but deeply, in the quiet moments, in decisions that felt heavier, in nights that felt longer than before. They never told you this, but losing you affected them more than they ever allowed themselves to admit. 2. Why the realization came after you left. Some people don't feel loss when it happens. They feel it when life asks them to stand on their own again. While you were there, you carried more than you realized. You listened, you understood. You made emotional weight feel lighter without ever being asked to. And because you made it look easy, they assumed it would always be there. Your presence became part of their normal. So normal that they didn't recognize its value until it was gone. After you left, they tried to continue as if nothing changed. They stayed busy. They filled their days with noise. They convinced themselves they were fine, but the mind can only distract for so long. Eventually, silence arrives. And silence has a way of revealing what was ignored. They noticed how heavy decisions felt without your perspective, how conversations felt empty without your understanding, how life felt louder but less meaningful. That's when the realization came, not as heartbreak, but as clarity. They didn't just lose a person, they lost emotional safety. They lost the place where they could be fully seen. And that kind of loss doesn't demand attention right away. It waits, then it settles deep. 3. What their silence really means. If they never told you how much losing you affected them, it doesn't mean you didn't matter. It means they didn't know how to speak from a place of vulnerability. Some people were taught that admitting loss is weakness, that naming pain makes it real, so they stay quiet, even when something inside them aches. Their silence is not indifference. It's protection. Protection from regret, from reopening emotions they buried, from admitting they didn't appreciate what they had in time. Here's the truth you may need to hear. If your absence didn't affect them, they wouldn't need to pretend they were fine. They wouldn't avoid certain thoughts. They wouldn't feel unsettled in moments that used to feel safe. You don't leave that kind of imprint without being significant. So if you've been questioning your value because they never said anything, let this release that doubt. Impact doesn't always come with confession. Sometimes it shows up as distance, avoidance, and silence. 4. Compassion does not mean going back. Understanding their pain does not require you to return to it. You can acknowledge that losing you affected them deeply and still honor the reasons you had to leave. If staying had been healthy, you wouldn't have needed so much strength to walk away. Their realization came late, not because you didn't give enough, but because they weren't ready to receive it. Going back now would not change the past. It would only ask you to step into a role you already outgrew. You didn't leave to teach them a lesson. You left to protect your peace. That choice doesn't become wrong just because someone finally feels the impact. Love is not measured by how much pain you're willing to absorb, and empathy does not require self-sacrifice. You can wish them healing without offering yourself again. You can care without reopening a door that once cost you clarity. 5. What this truth gives you, knowing that losing you affected them, is not meant to pull you backward. It's meant to free you. Free you from wondering if you imagined the connection. Free you from questioning your worth because they never said the words. Free you from the fear that you were easy to forget. You weren't. You mattered in the calm you brought, in the safety you offered, in the emotional space you held without asking for anything in return. And when that disappeared, something inside them felt heavier, even if they never named it. But this understanding isn't about them anymore. It's about you trusting that your presence had meaning, even if its impact was fully felt only in your absence. Some people only understand love once it's no longer accessible, and that realization, however late, does not diminish what you gave. It confirms it. Not every story ends with closure. Some end with quiet clarity. You may never hear the words you deserved. You may never know the exact moment they felt your loss, and that's okay, because your value was never dependent on their ability to express it. You didn't leave because you failed. You left because you were growing, because staying required you to shrink parts of yourself that deserved to expand. The moment you chose peace over proving your worth, that was the moment you won. Let this be the end of self-doubt. Let this be the beginning of gentler love, especially toward yourself. If this message felt personal, it's because you're not alone in this feeling. Like this video if you're learning to let go without guilt. Comment, "I mattered," even if your voice shakes while typing it. Subscribe for more stories that help you heal without hardening your heart. You were never invisible. They just realized it too late. Today, you finally listened. If you're ready to choose peace, comment, "I choose myself." Like this video if you're done questioning your sensitivity. Subscribe if you want reminders that love should feel safe, steady, and whole, not something you recover from. You're not late, you're right on time.